Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Welcome to the Brown Sports Bag here on WCLU Radio 103.1 and 104.7. It's the Brown Sports Bag. James Brown, John Butler, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We're going to talk a little bit about some girls basketball, actually, to lead the show today. We'll get around to the boys in the second segment, but the girls are kind of the highlight. At least the Barron County girls are at the moment. They got off. I'd say they got off to a rough start. They lost their opener at Greene County. They struggled to finish the game, and then they beat Elizabethtown, but at the end. But they got a good lead in that game, so Elizabethtown didn't come back on them. But last week, Caverna's down, so they opened with the win over Caverna, but I thought they had two really good wins in back-to-back days. And that's the important thing, I think, on the Friday and the Saturday. You play district rival Warren East on Friday night, play well in that game, turn around on Saturday. About 12 hours later, they played again. Maybe 14 hours later, they played again and beat a very good Cumberland County team again this year, John. And the defense has been great in those back-to-back games. Yeah,
they played 3 games last week, and most points they gave up was 37.
Yeah.
I mean, the Friday night district game against East was 47-37.
Mm-hmm.
And defensively, they just played super against East, who turned around and beat Bowling Green the next day, too, by the way. So, that was a really good win, and Abby Schlegels really helped them. I mean, her outside shooting and it's just been super for them. And she shot it well against East, came in and made a couple of threes, and against Cumberland County the next day as well in a 50-20. They only gave up 28 points to I think a much improved Cumberland County team.
Yeah,
they're much better than they've been in the last so many years. So. Didn't score a ton of points, but pretty efficient with Schlegel, and Shelby Bird was in foul trouble against Warren East, and didn't. I think she only had like 8 points, something like that. But defensively, pretty good performance last week.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it's if your defense can carry you and you can, find some timely shooting, right, then that can win a lot of games for you usually. Is that how it works, John?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. If you're holding teams to under 40,
mm-hmm.
and then you're going to win a lot of games. And I think they gave up like 51 to Greene and gave up 67, 68 to E-Town, but Barron scored 71.
Yeah.
So, and E-Town is the best offensive team that they played.
Yeah.
But this past week, Caverna's were way down, so I don't even count that game as in terms of gave up 20 points. But East, they got some kids that can score. Had 4 out of 5 starters back from last year's team that won the district.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good win, and it was a really nice follow-up win the next day.
I was looking at if you called it the district power rankings in the 4th region. Franklin Simpson's clearly the best team, which obviously elevates the 13th district. But the 15th district in girls, it looks like the best district in girls because, Glasgow they're struggling at the moment. They did get their first win on Saturday against South Warren in an ugly fashion, 30-25. But when you look at East and Barron and Allen County, Scottsville, you have 3 good teams there. And right now the 14th district Bowling Green's going to be okay, but they lost to Warren East, as you mentioned, on Saturday. The 16th district, top to bottom, might be the second best district, but I don't want to vouch for that because you still have Todd County in the 13th district with Franklin Simpson, and they have a really good player in Alexis Taylor. But it looks like the 15th district is the best girls district in the 4th region.
Probably, I think that's fair. I think what is very accurate is Franklin is by far the best team in the region.
Yeah.
I said it last year too until they slipped up in the regional tournament.
Right.
And you don't see a lot of upsets in girls regions.
Yeah.
In the 4th. It's generally the chalk generally wins out for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And but they are by far the best team in the region right now. if they stay injury-free, I mean, they're going to be a tough out. I think they're probably a top 20 team in the state.
Yeah.
They got a big win against Henderson County, so they've increased their schedule. Henderson County has won the second, I think, 6 straight years.
Right.
And has a lot of players back. So they got a good win against Henderson. And I think after Franklin, I think 2 through 6 is very close.
Right.
Probably give Metcalf right now. They're playing well. They knocked off Allen. They've got some other good wins this year. Southwest Pulaski, Southwestern. They're scoring points, and you know that's a group that's played together forever.
Yeah,
4 starters back. So
also playing better defense this year.
Seems like it. Seems like it. Yeah. So I'd probably put them at 2, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6 is probably a combination of Barron, Todd Central, Allen, and Warren East.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things about the Bowling Green loss
and Bowling Green, I'm sorry,
yeah.
and Bowling Green's the other one. Yep.
Yeah, and one thing about the Warren East win over Bowling Green on Saturday is Natea Wardlow, who's their second best player and sometimes their best player, that did not play. She didn't play Friday against Glasgow when they won that game handily, and she also did not play against Warren East.
That's a big loss then.
Yeah, because she was kind of the star of the region last year, especially in the upsets.
Smiley's their best player.
Yeah,
but she's kind of the energy player, makes a lot of things happen, and so forth. So. Is she just temporarily out, or
I don't know. I just looked at stats and noticed she didn't play in those 2 games.
Yeah. Well, she's out for the year. That changes everything. If
she's
just out for a small amount of time, then they'll be fine.
Yeah, because going back to the Bowling Green, I mean, Smiley can score on her own, and Wardlow's the other one that can really kind of get her own shot by her penetration. But the rest of that team is kind of dependent on the things that Coach Head can draw up for them.
Well, listen, there's so many players, especially in girls' high school right now, that can even handle the ball.
Yeah.
And when your point guard goes out, which is what she is, then that puts you in a world of trouble.
It does. Yeah, so it does make that the win that East had over Bowling Green, you can put an exclamation mark next to it at the moment because it was a 46-44. Bowling Green has a lot of size. That's one thing that they probably have an advantage on against anybody except for Franklin Simpson. They do everywhere except for the Larisha Cawthorn, and she's long and she can handle the ball and shoot. So, I mean, that makes an interesting matchup for a lot of other teams. But, going back to the Glasgow girls, they did get a win on Saturday. The caveat there, South Warren was playing without McLean Hudson. I think she was at a softball camp she's a softball player who plays basketball, but she is also their best basketball player.
Yeah, signed with Kentucky, too.
Yeah.
In softball.
Right. So, that's a kind of asterisk there next to it.
Well, they got to win, and that's, whenever you can get a win, get one. That's their first win, 1-3. And, with Glasgow, I hate to say the same thing said last week. It's the trouble is scoring.
Yeah.
Now, they had a shot against Logan. They got beat 41-38 and actually led at some points in the fourth quarter and had a shot to tie it at the end against Logan. I don't even think they got a shot off, to be honest with you. But
they didn't. And then they had the lead against Greenwood, and I think got outscored 7-0 run at the end of the game.
So, they've been in some close ones. Bowling Green was not competitive, got beat 58-19.
Yeah.
And the South Warren game was 30-25. That's
that's defense, John.
But you take that. But the problem is it's still shooting. They were only 1 out of 14 from 3 and 8 out of 25. Kirkpatrick had 8. And like I said, I think for them to reach their top notch, I think she probably needs to be double figures.
Yeah.
Cynthia Austin had 7. I think same thing with her.
Yeah.
And so forth. So right now with Glasgow is they're in some games.
Yeah. Well,
the only game they hadn't been in is the Bowling Green, right?
Yeah.
It's they've got to find a way to make shots, and it's that's the most important part of the game, but it's also sometimes the most difficult thing to do.
I mean, it is kind of a funny statement you just made there. I mean, it's like one of those where it says, well, that's obvious, but I mean, if you don't have a player who can get their own shots, then you're dependent on your ability to break a defense. And then when you do, that person has got to make a shot because you're going to get an open shot. but you just got to make them.
Well,
and it seems like so simple, but it's obviously not.
Yeah, unless you have the type of team that can create shots through your defense, which is you're long, you're athletic, you can get steals and get easy shots.
Yeah.
Glasgow didn't have that.
No.
And not a lot of teams don't. But the ability to make shots is, the more I watch basketball, is the most important thing going. Sunday I went and watched Louisville women play North Carolina State.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville's got a top 5 program in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
They scored 42 points. They had more turnovers than they made shots. They had 17 turnovers and 16 field goals.
Yeah.
They shot 23% for the game. And that's not the first time this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they got to 45 points against UConn.
Mm-hmm.
So making shots when all else is fairly equal, you can just kind of just exchange jerseys or you don't know who's playing what.
Yeah.
Sometimes the only separator at time are people who can shoot or create their own shots and get shots, and that's teams struggle with that at every level. And girls and boys. It's not just a girl thing. We've seen this locally in boys too.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that part of it when we come to the second segment here when we're talking about the boys. Anything else on the girls' high school basketball you can think of?
Well, Barron and Allen's got a big game Thursday.
Yes.
It's a big district game right now. Barron's got a district win over East,
mm-hmm.
and it's back to Allen. And that's obviously I know Barron is excited about the game, but so's Allen. Allen's excited, but that's where Allen knocked off Barron last year in the first round of the district. So it's an unusual Thursday night district game, especially with both teams not playing on Friday. It's a little odd from a scheduling perspective. Something happened where they had to move it that way. It's not anybody's personal fault, but that should be a really good girls game. Yeah,
it'll be an interesting.
Morris, Allen's best player, had 38 the other day. I saw.
Yeah, she's playing up to expectation this year.
Was she a sophomore?
I believe that's correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's been real close the last few years. I mean, since she was in the 8th grade.
Yep.
But, she's really playing as well as everybody expected her to. All right, it's the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. This is James Brown, John Butler here. We're going to talk a little bit about some high school boys basketball. Other than Caverna's boys, who are good, but are actually playing a pretty tough schedule, so their record probably doesn't reflect how good they actually are. Barron County and Glasgow are both struggling in the boys' side at the moment. Now, obviously, Barron's played some really good teams. I mean, they played 3 teams out of the 18th district. Greene County, Caverna, and LaRue County, and all 3 of those teams could win that district.
Win the region.
Yeah, all 3 of them could win the region. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the Dare, that may be 3 of the top 5 teams in the region.
We were talking about how good the girls' 15th district is. Imagine being in that 18th district on the boys' side there.
It's a rarity, very rare, that's the best district over there.
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah, and it may have been the best district over there last year, too. It's just that it was close. It was close. I think.
Yeah. It was a good district.
It was. But, yeah, it's really talented this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Caverna's record doesn't reflect how good they actually are. I mean, if you just look at the score of their game against Barron, it might give you an idea of the differences. But the Trojans have struggled offensively. Glasgow has struggled offensively, and this is what we're talking about in the first segment. They're just not shooting the ball well. And I don't really know exactly why, because based on what we saw from both those teams, the players they had coming back from last year, you would think both of them could shoot the ball better than they are. And maybe in Barron's case, they're in the unusual situation of knocking off the rust because they went so deep in the football playoffs. That's something Glasgow in the past has definitely known. But that's not the case for the Glasgow basketball players who played football. And a lot of them were pretty good shooters last year. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I think you've seen a couple of the different games. I mean, what do you see?
Who you want to start with, Barron?
You pick which one.
All right, Barron's 1-4, and they had a tough week last week. I think it's fair to say they lost.
Yeah.
They got blown out by Caverna, 72-46, in which they were really never into the game, to be honest with you. The Warren East game on Friday was the most competitive. It was tied at halftime, 23-23, something like that.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
And then Warren East ends up winning 64-50. And again, scoring points is got to score more than 50.
Yeah.
Unless you play a really, really slow game.
Yeah.
And that may be something they're going to have to adjust to, maybe pace of play and so forth, and maybe have to slow it down. They
are shaping up for a team that looks like they need to be scoring in the 40s and keeping everybody else in that same range.
Possible. Coach Cunningham, I know he's trying to figure out a lot of things right now.
Right, yeah.
But that was a good game over there, and just, again, the Barons' inability to, I think, consistently score. I know the Decker kid had a double-double. He had 11 points, 12 rebounds, and Tate Spillman had 17.
Yeah.
And they need that out of Tate. They need it out of both of those. But you also got to get some more scoring from different people.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And then they ran into, I tell you what, this LaRue County team on Saturday was really impressive to me.
They were.
Lost 77-52, and LaRue has all the ingredients to win a region. They got a 6'6" kid inside. It's a heck of a player.
Yeah.
And then they got these 3 guards on the outside that can just flat shoot it, and they're also quick enough to go by you too.
Yeah.
They're a hard team to play. They're a great shooting team, and
they have the 3 guards all outside, and they're all long too.
Yeah, they're good. And Barron just had a hard time. It's a combination of things. Defensively, Barron. Listen, LaRue's hard to guard, but they struggled guarding the post. They were letting their big kid catch it way too deep. I think Barron wanted to front them and then make them throw over the top, and didn't do that real well at times. And I think that's part of the Coach Cunningham's frustration. Didn't really follow the game plan either.
Yeah,
gave up a lot of straight line drives and so forth, and again, just not getting near enough production scoring. If you had a Barron County uniform on and sat on the bench or close to the bench, you played. He tried everybody.
I do want to give a shout out to Weston Shelton, who's a freshman. That guy came in there, just attacked the rim.
Yeah, he did. He did play with no fear. Yeah, I think he had 8 or 9 points, something like that. Yeah, but he's I know he's frustrated, Coach Cunningham. He's got senior guards and Tate and Ray Bewley and Waylon Clemens, so he has some seniors returning and so forth, but right now they're kind of out of whack and not shooting well and kind of searching right now, I think, for an identity and maybe how they want to play, and it has not helped either. In fairness, it's just how the schedule worked.
Right.
To open up, normally if 3 of your first 4 games are against the 18th district, that's normally not a horrible schedule.
No.
It just so happens this year that's a really tough schedule, and every team that they play, Caverna, Green, and LaRue, can flat score.
Yeah.
And Warren East is a good team too.
Yeah.
So it's right now they've I think they're just kind of struggling for an identity, and they got to kind of figure out how they want to play and so forth.
And then meanwhile, I think like if you're in Glasgow's situation, the big thing there is, well, it's 2 big things actually. One is Landon Minton didn't play until Saturday. That was the first game he had played this year, and he's a big kid for them inside who can also step out and shoot a 3. We saw him do it like in the district tournament last year. That was big for them. And then, of course, the week before the season starts, or a week and a half before the season starts, they're not going to have Jarek Martin the whole. We don't know if he's going to be back, because he had to have surgery on his knee. So they're kind of having to build the plane as the season's going along versus what I think they thought they were going to be doing, and maybe that's part of that identity thing too. You wind up with a group of players who can play basketball. We saw them do it last year, but they're missing their best player, clearly, when Jarek Martin, and then another key player for them, was out. And so maybe they're also searching for what they need to be doing.
Yeah, they're 0-4, and it's kind of funny in the sense their best game was the first game.
Yeah.
Against Greenwood, who's turned out to be a good team.
Yeah. Looked like not a bad loss.
No, that's exactly right. Greenwood has knocked off North Hardin 83-82, knocked off Owensboro Catholic. And except for, I watched it on a film, just a horrific technical foul against Glasgow.
Yeah.
And the call that set up the technical.
Yeah.
The phantom over the back or whatever call.
Yeah. It was way after the foul.
They gave Greenwood down 4 free throws in the ball with 47 seconds to go. I mean, Glasgow was probably going to win that game.
Yeah.
But then they went to Logan and lost to, an average at best Logan team, 58-50. Got blown out by Bowling Green Friday.
The Logan loss was kind of like the Greenwood loss. They were sitting good, and then they just didn't score at the end of the game.
Bowling Green's Bowling Green, even though they don't have their football players.
Yeah.
But Saturday was discouraging, losing to Clinton 67-35. Just Clinton. I mean, Clinton's got a good team. They got good size.
Yeah.
And Clinton's Clinton. They're physical and so forth. But they tonight. The second half just wasn't competitive, to be honest with you. So Glasgow's 0-4. They need a win just for morale purposes and so forth. Hopefully they'll get Martin back sometime. They'll need him. He's one of the top 10 players in the region.
Yeah.
Josiah Driver is playing pretty well. He was double figures every game last week, 17, 11, and 15, all 3 games. But you got to score more than 38 and 35.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to beat anybody.
The thing that I think is a little bit surprising for me when it comes to Glasgow, even without Jarrett, because Jarrett's not a 3-point shooter. I mean, he's an inside, he's an attack the rim kind of player.
He opens up the 3 because
yes, he does.
You got to guard him on the inside, and his penetration creates openings.
Yeah, and so maybe that's the deal, is they do have people who can shoot. They're just not getting the looks without Jarrett out there.
Correct.
So, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that particular part of it, but that does seem to be an impact. And then you have the Caverna Colonels. They had a dogfight with the Dragons on Friday night.
Literally.
Yeah.
He had an ejection.
I think 3 players ended up getting ejected from the game.
Green's best player, the point guard, Eric James Jr., was thrown out, and 2 of Caverna's were thrown out.
Yeah.
In maybe late first quarters, early second, something like that.
Yeah.
You hate to see things like that happen. That's a pretty intense rivalry, to say the least. But Green ended up winning about 10 or 12 points.
Yeah, I think it was 57-48 was the final.
Yeah.
So, and then Caverna played Mercer County on Saturday, of course, without the 2 people who had been ejected from that game, and I think ended up losing 62-50, something like that. They've gone outside of what we have seen from Caverna in the past in terms of the schedule they're playing, because their district's strong this year, but they've been going, on Saturdays, and I think trying to pick up some games against teams that are also expected to be pretty good. So, I mean, they're really challenging themselves, I do believe, and I think it'll pay off. But that district's going to be fascinating. I think they play LaRue this coming Friday at LaRue. So they sort of like in the 15th, we're getting these early tests.
Well, you want to be the 1 seed in that one.
Yeah, you do.
Because Hart looks down.
Right.
Hart looks by far the worst team in that district.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be in that 2-3 game. Any of the 3, LaRue, Green, Caverna, playing each other that'd be a dogfight.
Yeah.
If you're the 1 seed, you're almost guaranteed a trip to the region.
Yeah. So it's a fascinating kind of turn for them, and I mean, I do think there are a couple of key players. Everybody looks at Jalen Crane. Because obviously he's the star of the team. He's a point guard, that kind of thing. But like Russell Williams, I think is always a key to the Colonels, because you just don't have many 6'5" guys who can handle the ball and shoot threes, and that's a tough matchup in high school. And then you mix in the Martin twins, who are just strong inside, and both can score themselves and shoot the ball a little bit. So I mean, it's a fascinating team they have. They just happen to be in, I don't know, the toughest district in the 5th region this year. Anything else on the boys basketball side you can think of?
Adair beat Bowling Green. Saturday.
Yeah.
But close without Bowling Green's football players too.
Yeah. Deuce Bailey's still watching.
That's correct. but good win for Adair. But a little asterisk next to that one.
Yeah, and then Warren Central lost to PRP on Saturday.
Okay.
So that one was a little bit interesting. Warren Central led most of the game and ended up losing in the end.
Okay.
I think it was a 2 or 4 point game. I think before it was all said and done. All right. This is the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag. This is James Brown, John Butler, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow every Monday at 4 o'clock on 103.1 and 104.7 WCLU. John, it's college basketball season officially because Kentucky and Louisville played on Saturday.
They did, and it was a good one.
Yeah. I watched most of the game, and what I decided during the course of the game is that two things, actually. One was Kentucky had better basketball players right now.
They got more.
They got more better basketball players, yes. But Louisville's got some good ones.
Yeah, they do.
And they're a scrappy bunch,
They
too.
They are. Pat Kelsey's done a good job.
Yeah, I was really impressed with both teams, to be honest with you.
I was too. I mean, it was a fabulous game. Louisville's just shorthanded. I mean, it's just a shame that they lost two of their top players.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pryor kid was playing fantastic. He was their second leading scorer, and at 6'9", 6'10".
Mm-hmm.
And when he tore his ACL after that Bahamas trip, it just crushed him. And then they had another player that's another guard that only played 2 games, and he's out for the year with shoulder surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically only got like 7, maybe 8 players, and to play the way he wants to, up tempo and so forth. They're never going to reach the level that they should have gotten. But their point guard, that Chucky Hepburn, he's tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
The Wisconsin kid, he put up, I think he had 26, and
Yeah.
he's one of the top 5 in the country in steals and so forth. He's a heck of a player. But they gave Kentucky all that they could. But I tell you what, the Butler kid from UK, who's the transfer from San Diego State, he 34, I think, has a career high, and didn't miss a field goal. He missed a few free throws, but did not miss a 3, did not miss a field goal. I think he's 9 out of 9, something like that.
Yeah.
He was outstanding. But it was a high level game. It was fun to watch. Kentucky can flat score. I think they may be the number 1 team in the country in scoring. They're 1, 2, or 3. But, I mean, they put up 90 consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Defensively, probably got some holes in them, but boy, they can flat. From an NIL perspective, and that's what they don't have anybody back.
Yeah.
So it's a brand new team.
Yeah.
He is put together. I really admire what he's done, and Pat Kelsey doesn't really have any 5 stars, but he put players together. You could tell there was a strategy, to get shooters, to go get a couple point guards. A lot of them were high level at like D1, but not necessarily at the top of D1.
Mm-hmm.
The Wake Forest kid is a good player, transfer from Wake Forest. That's obviously an ACC school, but he's just done a great job. But I also think Pat Kelsey has too.
Yeah.
Pat Kelsey probably had a tougher hand. He's got a brand new roster as well, but Louisville has been awful the last couple of years. He's probably had a little bit.
It wasn't a very attractive place for the recruits to go to, transfers or whatever.
That's correct, and it's just a shame he's lost those 2 players. But that was a great basketball game.
As I watched that game, there was one thing I kind of thought about on the Kentucky side of things. I had different thoughts for each team, each program at the moment. And on the Kentucky side, I thought to myself, Mark Pope has put together a group of players who play together. And that may sound like a simple thing, but that was not what was going on at Kentucky before. I mean, you had some star players and highly touted players, big-time recruits, but you would watch the teams play, and they weren't very effective together.
Well, part of it's system, Cal system, and this system, and part of it too is he's got a lot of juniors, seniors, 5th-year players, and Cal's new players they're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 17, 18-year-olds with a couple of grad transfers or senior transfers mixed in that never seemed to work.
Just recently.
Yeah, in the last couple of years since that became a thing. But yeah, to me, what I looked at for the Kentucky side of things was Pope has built in kind of what I would consider what's going on at UConn. They're do you play well together? And he'll end up mixing in, I think, some freshmen and that kind of stuff as time goes along. It's just that he had to build a roster, in a hurry.
Right.
I think what Kelsey did is he's kind of done the same thing, but he kind of seems to have a scrappy group of people. They may not be as highly skilled as the guys that Pope managed to get at Kentucky, but they are not fearful of anything. They played that game fearlessly, and every game I've seen them play, that's how they've played.
Yep.
They've played without fear. They believe they should be on the floor, and
100% different from the team that was there.
Yes, yeah.
The Kenny Payne teams who were just awful to watch, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, and so it was a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun watching both of them.
Yep.
And then you mix in WKU down here, who had a huge win over Murray State. Big time game there between two, what is that, mid-level conferences, but they're usually strong conferences in terms of that mid-level, or if you're good in that conference, you're a good program. So big time game between two teams that are at that same kind of level, trying to make a mark for whenever we get to the end of the year, and you're trying to do the whatever the Kenny thing is, Ken Palm ratings and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So I thought, when you watch WKU, they've got good things going on there. Also, high energy, play hard, never, the game's never over.
Right.
And it's kind of nice. I mean, I don't know if all three of them are going to make the tournament.
It's been a good year in college basketball.
Yeah.
Been a good year.
Yeah. So I don't know if all three are going to make the NCAA tournament, but I like the way all three programs are headed at the moment.
I agree. Louisville, it remains to be seen. Do they have enough players to make it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Kentucky is. I'm convinced they're a Final Four program.
Yeah.
Convinced of that. I mean, they're one of the top programs in the country.
And do you think WKU? How do you think they arrange in the
it's
Conference
probably
USA?
It's been recently a one-bid league.
Well,
I mean they won
win it championship, win the conference tournament, or stay home.
That's the way it's been. So
probably won't change.
Probably won't change any. So it comes down to that conference tournament.
Yeah, and then on the women's side, I think Kentucky and Louisville are both still in the top 25.
No. Louisville's not. No.
Oh, they got knocked out.
They got bounced. They've up to 5 losses. They got beat 40 by UConn. And yesterday they got beat 30 to an unranked North Carolina State team. So no, they've been bounced from the top 25. Kentucky's still in the top 25 and deservingly so. But Louisville is really, really struggling. The team can't score. Didn't shoot very well. Does not look like a Jeff Walls team.
Right. And then the WKU women, how are they holding
They got their
up?
first loss at Wichita, then bounced back and won. They're getting ready to go on a trip to Hawaii where they play Oregon State and I think Nevada. They're 7-1.
Mm-hmm. You going to Hawaii?
I wasn't asked. I would go, but I wouldn't ask for that trip.
Okay. So you heard it here first. John will go if you'll ask him.
I will go. That's correct.
Meanwhile, the college football playoffs kick off on Friday. You all lined up for that? Who's going to win that, John?
I do like that. I mean, I don't care anything about the bowls, but I do like this is new.
Yeah.
12-team playoff. Very, very interested. I mean, it's not set up right. We know that. I mean, two of the 4 teams, no way they should get biased. But
right.
Indiana and Notre Dame, very interested in watching that. Ohio State, Tennessee.
Those
are 2 super games.
Yeah. I'm interested.
And I assume I hadn't heard of anybody that not playing. They're all playing in that one, and they're bailing out of these bowls like crazy.
Yeah,
in fact,
Marshall had to forfeit, so to speak.
Don't blame them.
Yeah, because all their players left.
That's
their coach
correct.
Also went to Southern Miss.
That's
so
right. So I don't blame them.
I'm sure they're all on their way to Hattiesburg.
Well, U of L's quarterback's not playing in their
Yeah.
bowl. So I mean, the bowls are just how I feel about it. But the playoffs, looking forward to it.
Yeah. They need to. They just need to expand the football playoffs to 64 teams, and then people will stick around and play maybe. But I don't know. It's kind of a sad situation when you see like the Marshall situation where they're just like, well, we're not going to have enough people to play. And then WKU, I mean, look at all the people they have in the transfer portal. But the difference is their coach is still there, and they're going to let the people who are in the portal play for them in the bowl game if they want to.
It's interesting.
I mean, either that or not get the money. I mean, if you're going to get money to go play in a bowl game.
I mean, it's interesting. I respect it. I couldn't do it.
No.
I mean, I couldn't do it as a coach. I'll just be honest with you. If I've got to – you name the sport. And if I'm playing and I know that person's leaving, I couldn't do it. I mean, I want the players who are going to stay and play for me next year. That's how I'd look at it. But I respect it. You know, it's a different philosophy, and I think the world of Coach Helton. But there's no way I could do that.
It is. I think the head coaches themselves are in a pickle of a situation.
They are,
because if you tell those players no, you can't play in this bowl game for us, then you're putting yourself in the position of going. If you even have enough players to really go play in the bowl game at this point. I guess you go play with the walk-ons.
I guess your philosophy is those players are still going to play hard for you because they're auditioning for whoever they're going to go to.
I do think that's part of the theory. And as we saw last year, sometimes they come back. I mean, that's what had, interestingly enough, Veltkamp's in the transfer portal, and he was last year.
I doubt if that happened twice in a row.
Yeah, you think he's headed to – he's going to Louisville?
I don't know that. Louisville just signed the USC quarterback.
Yeah. That's true. They did. So the portal taketh, the portal giveth. Mm-hmm. That's the way it is. It's an amazing thing that nobody really knows how to.
10% of the players that go in the portal do not find a team.
No. I did see a thing that I did agree with, and I wish I could remember who it was. It's somebody who's not coaching now but is a former college coach who made the comment, it's so stupid to have the portal open in December instead of in February.
It is.
And basically the portal and the signing window should be lined up together.
There's a lot of crazy things.
Yeah.
And Bill Belichick is now in the college football, which is the craziest situation I've ever heard of. Just tells me he wasn't going to get an NFL job, which tells me that there's a lot of NFL owners that don't want to win. It's the bottom line. They don't want to win because if you want to win, you talking about you put him at Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, get all that fixed, or Chicago, or go to Dallas. He instantly changes that organization and gives them a chance to win.
It does seem like we've hit an era of NFL ownership, and
they don't want to win. Enough.
It's more about them than it is winning.
That's exactly right.
And we saw, that
he clearly wants to coach. He would go to North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, and he knew he wasn't going to get an NFL job. He had figured it out.
That's exactly right. That's right. He would rather be in the NFL.
Yeah. So he'll do it for a couple of years, and we'll see how that works out for him. Yep. And but it is a fascinating situation. I mean, I never did I wake up on a day and think to myself, I think I'll see Don Shula coaching at San Jose State one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the greatest coach of all time is gone to college to coach because he can't get an NFL job. It's the weirdest situation ever.
Yeah. Anything else on the college football, basketball front you can think of?
No, I think that's it.
All right. It's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag. This is James Brown, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, here with John Butler. Congratulations to the Barron County cheerleaders. They were state runners-up in the co-ed cheer division. They won the region earlier this year in that division. I think they were runners-up to McCracken County. I think that's who finished ahead of them. So they've had a good year there with the Barron County cheerleaders, John. Yeah,
they coming off last year when they won the Nationals, right?
That's right. Okay. Won that down in Orlando, Florida. I think it's the USC's or UC. I can't remember the.
Right, it's the one on ESPN.
Yes, that's right. The one on ESPN. That's all you need to know. Mm-hmm. And then. Volleyball is still going on the college front.
Final Four. U of L got to the Final Four again. It's 2 out of the last 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And they get to play at home.
Is that right?
It's at the Yum Center. That's absolutely. Starts Thursday. They play it's Louisville versus Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt's the number 1 team in the nation. Louisville is right there too. So yeah, I mean it was. They've all their matches have been at home. The first round was at the Young. The next round was at Freedom Hall, and now it's back to the Young for the finals. And it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Home cooking's working out for them.
Or it's Thursday, Saturday, I guess. It's Thursday, Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, so the home cooking's working out for them.
They got 2 Louisville kids on there. This Anna DeBeer went to Sacred Heart, and they got another kid, her last name's Scott, that played in Louisville too. So it's pretty neat to have 2 of your best players. DeBeer is their best player, but homegrown.
Yeah. Very good soft volleyball played in Louisville at some of those schools.
Louisville, Southern Indiana.
Yeah.
Yes. National powers, Assumption.
Yeah. So that's great. And then the Mets stole a Yankees player?
Soto signed the largest contract in sports history, right? $765 million for what, 15 years? Something like that.
Isn't that just crazy? 15 years. I mean, the number's one thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that an organization would give the number over
I wouldn't
15
give anybody
years.
more than a 5-year contract, and there's still organizations like that. Nobody gets more than 5.
Yeah.
But 15-year, close to $1 billion, it's just. I don't even know what to say. There's not one baseball player worth that. I do know that.
Yeah.
And he's 25 right now.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, when he's 37, 38 and still making $51 million, I don't know.
It's those kinds of contracts.
Great hitter, too.
Yeah.
Not a very good base runner. Not a very good outfielder. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah. Those kinds of contracts just have to make you step back and ask yourself, what is money?
Yeah.
Because, if you can – I remember whenever I was a kid and Magic Johnson got the lifetime $1 million a year contract, and it was just – because he was going to get it whether he's playing or not. That was the reward that Dr. Buss gave to him. And it was the thought at the time was like, he's going to get $1 million every year for the rest of his life. And you're like, oh, that wouldn't even get close to what they just paid this man, or they're going to pay this man.
Baseball has no salary cap. There's no salary cap, so you can pay him whatever you want to.
Right.
Whatever you want to do as an owner. There's no real cap or rules. There's a luxury tax, I think, maybe, but you can sign whoever you want to for whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's going to – overall, the Yankees will be better. They've already signed a top-notch pitcher and got another player.
Yeah.
I think long-term they maybe backed into a better situation, but I just – it's hard to relate to.
No. And if you're a Mets fan, you can rejoice today because you got one over on the Yankees, so to speak. But
we'll see
how in the long term, it's not going to pan out. It hasn't yet.
Right.
No one has paid anyone in baseball for a long term, and it gets really more than 3 years before it's like buyer's remorse.
Maybe the Dodgers with Ohtani.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, but look, he had to have the Tom
Philadelphia
Johnson.
with Bryce Harper, he's signed like an 11, 12-year contract. That's been pretty good so far.
Yeah.
But when it gets in those later years, it's hard to it's hard to make sense of it.
Yeah. And then you're like the Cleveland Browns, and you're carrying around a contract that you shouldn't have signed to start with, and then immediately knew
you can't get rid of it either.
Yeah, no, and then you're obligated to start a dude who can't win games, and you got a backup who is at least entertaining.
That's correct. Jameis.
Yeah, Jameis Winston. You can guarantee it's going to be entertaining, even if it's not good.
That's right.
All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.